and welcome to this rather chilly evening. Thank you for braving it here tonight. We will talk about it at the end of the meeting, but just to let you know that we're going to have the next few months at the hub for our ordinary council meeting. So we won't have to wear our down jackets. This meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people. We wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to all members of our community. Do we have any apologies for this evening? All councillors are present, all officers are present. Conflict of interest disclosures. I note that I have a conflict of interest for item 18.1. I have an association with two of the applicants. Does anybody else have a conflict of interest disclosure?
Thank you, Mayor. I also have a conflict at confidential item 18.1 in having an association with one of the grant applicants.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst.
Conflict of interest on item 15.3 regarding the Headstones project budget allocation, as I am a member of the organising committee. Thank
you, Councillor Gregar. Any further conflicts of interest? Item 4, leave of absence of councillor. Councillor Rule is applying for leave of absence. The recommendation is that Council grant a leave of absence to Councillor Rule from Council from the 28th of June to the 12th of August 2025, and notes that as per section 21 of the Local Government Act 2020, that the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Monaghan, will perform the role of Mayor during Councillor Rule's leave of absence. Do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Do I have a seconder? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. All those in favour? Thank you. Public question time. There are no public questions outstanding. And this evening we have 3 public questions. The first question is from Janice Mackey. Would you like to read your question, Janice? Or I can if you want me to. All right, thank you. Janice writes, the only area in Point Lonsdale for dogs off lead all year round is the dog beach. So if you're old, disabled, do not drive, sick or lonely for company, it's impossible to exercise your dog. I feel this exclusive and in some cases cruel to both the owners and the animal or animals. Personally, I have multiple sclerosis and find it impossible in the warmer weather to get to the dog beach, let alone walk on the sand with a stick or walker. Point Lonsdale is absolutely a dog-friendly area, and we would, for the umpteenth time, appreciate Council considering an off-lead area for all. For example, the Springs Oval. All it needs is your approval and the fence and gates to be mended, not the whole thing being replaced, but mended. A number of us will be at the Council meeting tonight and would love to hear from you on this matter. Could I call on the Manager of Community and Regulatory Services to respond? Thank you, Tim Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Janice, for your question. Council understands more off-leash open space for dogs and would provide a broad community benefit for the borough and would meet the needs of those in our community with accessibility. Okay, I'll start again. Council understands more off-leash open space for dogs would provide a broad community benefit in the borough and would meet the needs of those in our community with accessibility requirements. In the coming months, Council is proposing to survey the community about the best location for an additional off-leash open space for dogs in the borough to progress this matter. So effectively, we're going to do a survey to the community seeking input about the best location for an additional off-leash open space. Online, online would probably be one way, but we'll engage with our community engagement team and make sure we get the best response from the residents in the community.
Elderly, they're unwell, they have maybe some sort of mental, I think this has been looked at and spoken about for so many decades in Point Lonsdale. Why do we have to keep having these surveys over and over?
All right, well, thank you, Janice. There's only one question at a time. We understand where it is that you're coming from, and thank you for coming this evening. We'll make sure that through the various outlets that we have, which includes, and I hope you've all signed up for the council newsletter. There'll be council newsletter, there will be the opportunity for it to be in the Ballerine Times, the website, Facebook, that's where the surveys will be advertised. Well, there are no more questions. I'm sorry, Janice. People have the opportunity to participate. The second question is from Belinda Lim. Is Belinda here? Belinda, would you like to read your question or? Thank you.
I'm a reasonably recent resident that has made a community here as a consequence of meeting other dog people. So the importance of that to community can't be overstated. I understand that council has
just here if you'd like to read that, so we can make sure it's the question that you asked.
Yes, yes. If I can just add a little bit before my question. I understand council has a specific portfolio dedicated to health and well-being, and there is overwhelming evidence about connectivity adding to health and well-being. So my question is, given that council has this specific portfolio for health and well-being, and given the overwhelming evidence of social connectivity being essential for health and well-being, will council allocate more off-leash areas for owners and their dogs to mingle and socialize? I know that's been partially answered in the previous question, but I support what Janice has said insofar as I am not certain what the survey is going to tell you. The evidence has already told you connectivity is essential for health and well-being, particularly for an aging population, many of whom are single, and their only companions are their pets. It allows people to come together. To look at one area is commendable. To look at enough areas is really the ideal.
Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you.
Tim Crawford, did you have anything to add?
Thank you for your question, Belinda. So we do appreciate the connection between health and wellbeing and dog ownership, and that's evident in our domestic animal management plan. So in our domestic animal plan, we speak to that connectivity between health and wellbeing. As mentioned in a previous response, we do understand there's a desire by some in the community for more off-leash spaces, so we propose to do a survey around what might be the best possible locations to meet those needs. So don't disagree with what you're saying about health and wellbeing and connectivity. what council is going to do is seek the views of residents in the community about where might be the best location to do that for more off-leash spaces.
Thank you, Tim. Public question 3 from QCA. David, okay, thanks. It's noted a number of budget submissions focused on council financial sustainability and suggested council actions to produce operating surpluses and efficiencies to fund works and maintenance, etc. In relation to the final budget and discounting an expensive operational productivity review, what other steps and material budgetary actions did Council take after hearing submissions to tackle what is shown in the 2024 annual report to be a financial picture over the past 5 years of 4 negative adjusted underlying results, and in this budget a LGPRF deficit forecast of $202,000 for 2025-2026 that continues the trend of operating deficits? Surely these are matters of concern, as with the customer satisfaction survey released tonight, showing multiple downward trends relating to value for money and overall council performance. I'd like to ask the CEO to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, and thank you for your question, David. You'll notice in the budget that Council's provided detailed explanations and reconciliations regarding the Local Government Performance Reporting Framework, or the LGPRF, based on the underlying result in both its annual reports and budget documents. These additional details should be considered when interpreting the Local Government Reporting Framework indicators, in particular around the timing of grants, receipts and things like that. The Council has also acknowledged and outlined the projected trends in operating income and expenditure, along with the challenges that must be managed to ensure long-term financial sustainability in the budget document. Some efficiency measures, such as staff resource efficiencies, have already been incorporated into this draft budget, and they're highlighted through the executive summaries. All changes made in the final budget based on budget submissions have been summarised in the agenda paper, so we've responded to a number of the questions you've asked in that paper. And Council will identify further potential efficiency measures as part of the proposed organisational efficiency review.
Relates to I guess it relates to specifically once the draft budget was passed and the final budget, has expenditures increased or not?
Yes, expenditures have increased, but they're not on necessarily operational or recurring operational matters. They're generally within one-off operating projects or other renewal projects.
So the 202,000 deficit, has that increased?
No. What's in the budget papers tonight is the deficit. Yep.
Thank you. Moving to item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. A copy of... Jane, yours wasn't determined to be a question. It was asking us to vote in a particular way on something that's coming up, so it doesn't clarify as a public question, but we've all discussed it, so it's been noted.
She wants to do a preamble.
All right, yes, fine.
My main emphasis is on the cat curfews and the damage that cats do. So the Sydney Morning Herald, the staggering death toll of roaming pet cats revealed. They'll kill more than 250 million native animals in Greater Sydney and Melbourne in a year. Managing pet cat impacts is much easier than managing feral cats. And councils maintain tougher regulations for dog ownership than the owner must take preventative action from allowing dogs to roam free with fines that fail to do so, whereas cats tend to roam a bit more. And pet owners should be responsible for having cats under control and we know that cats predate on birds, mammals and frogs. Now, just looking at your agenda item, in the attachments, you note that the context of this area, this document, was that it has a wetland of global significance for fauna, and that cat containment came up as third in the issue of looking at this. It does say that you are responsible for your dog or cat at all times, and it just seems to be cats can hop over the fence, and it's not the same as if you saw a dog. So I think you have to look at really treating dogs and cats the same. You must prevent your cat from becoming a nuisance to other people. And this is difficult, ensure your cat is not able to cause any harm to wildlife. Well, once it's out of your sight, you get a little frog or a lizard or the Domestic Animal Act, which the borough uses, of 1994, prohibits the presence of cats other than the restrained domestic cats in any public place within the municipal district. So that means they can't go outside your fence. The same penalties apply as for dogs.
Okay, we've read all of that, so thank you very much, Jane.
And just, if you want evidence that a cat's straying, I think at the minute you have to trap the cat, but I think that's very difficult to trap a cat, and I think with modern phones with GPS and timestamps and videos, you might consider that that's a way of having evidence that a cat is straying rather than trapping a cat, which is very difficult to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Sorry. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting on the 28th of May 2025, as distributed, be confirmed as an accurate record. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. The Ordinary Council meeting of the 28th of May 2025, confidential minutes, that the confidential minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting of 28th of May 2025, as distributed, be confirmed as an accurate record. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Record of informal meetings of councillors is included in adjunct item 7. I'm just double checking because I know we had to check one. That the record of informal meeting of councillors as presented in the adjunct to item 7 be noted. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Notice of motion. The notice of motion status update. The recommendation is that the notice of motion status update be noted. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? 8.2, notice of motion, strategic planning response to Victorian government housing targets. Councillor Gregal.
Thank you. My notice of motion is actually a follow-on from my question from last month regarding the Victorian government housing targets. Now, this council, our borough, our tiny borough, is actually going to be impacted by 400 dwellings. It can take any form of a granny flat, like a 2-storey house. We've got, any forms of units, aged care facilities. Now, we are sea-locked. We're busting. We're straining to provide for the people we already have. So, for the Victorian government to actually enforce us to develop 400 new dwellings within our borough, we need to have some, not certainty, some guidelines and plans and directions of how we're going to deliver this. So my notice of motion here is actually, to help the community get the grips and plan ahead so councillors can work out how we're going to budget, provide facilities, provide infrastructure. So my recommendation on this council, that council resolves to initiate a community engagement process to seek feedback on the potential opportunities and constraints for accommodating up to 400 additional dwellings within the Borough of Queenscliff by 2050, as provided under the Planning of Victoria by the state government. 2, request a report from officers summarising an ability to accommodate the Planning for Victoria targets for 400 new dwellings by 2050, including reference to past new dwellings, annual construction rates, and potential issues and challenges in providing 400 dwellings by 2050. And 3, request that a report detailing the findings of the engagement and the assessment activities by presented to Council at or before the September 2025 ordinary meeting to inform the development of the 2025 to 2029 Council plan.
Thank you, Councillor Griggar. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Griggar, would you like to say anything further?
Yes, I'd like to bring this out because I think we really need to understand which areas that we can protect, especially we've got some very sensitive moon and woodlands. We've got some parks that are intrinsic to the livability of our community. So, we need some certainty, or, the community has some a fairly good understanding of how we're going to deliver this project, and we can get ahead of the curve and actually really have input than leaving it to the last minute.
Thank you. Councillor Tolhurst.
Thank you, Councillor Griggar, for bringing this motion. I also think it's wise to lead local consultation that actually enables the borough to play its role in the state's desperate need for extra housing. I believe all communities are obliged to support this, and the state has mandated it, but understanding how to do it in a way that's supported by the community and sympathetic to its amenity and the natural environment is really important. The reality not captured by the preamble is that the borough is on track to achieve 400 homes by 2050, with 174 new dwellings approved between 2016 and 2025, averaging 19 new homes per year over the 9-year period. So an average of only 15 is needed annually to deliver the target of 400 by 2050. But doing that in partnership with the community, not as its opposition, is really important, and I think consultation can assist with that. So I do support the motion and the ongoing discussion with our community about this important matter.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Is there anybody wanting to speak against the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 8.3, notice of motion, opposition to the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund. Councillor Griggar.
Yes, going forward, this motion is actually brought forward because come the start of next month, we are going to be hit by a tax imposed by the state government that we have worked very hard within our budget to actually keep our fees down, and all of a sudden that, for the gains that we have made as a council and as a community, the state government has virtually just trashed all our work and going to increase the collection of monies that we will have minor benefit, because the money that's collected will go into general revenue that was actually not really intended to service the emergency services levy. We have, the head of the fire union that's actually raised the campaign of not in our name, and that's why I've brought up this motion to oppose the following new tax, and I recommend that Council express concerns regarding the implementation of the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, the ESVF, by the Victorian Government and its anticipation adverse impacts on local government operations, the delivery of community services and the financial burden placed upon ratepayers. 2, note with concern the significant administrative and financial impulse on councils who are required to act as a collection agent for the ESVF on behalf of the state government without adequate compensation for administrative cost and debt recovery process. 3, raises the issue of financial risk to councils arising from the requirement to remit the state government's share of partial payments received from ratepayers, potentially resulting in substantial revenue shortfalls and reduced ability to fund essential local services. 4, highlights the disproportionate impact of the ESVF on the rural and regional communities, particularly farmers and landholders who often serve as volunteer emergency responders. The 150% increase in the variable rate for primary production land from 28.7 cents to 71.8 cents per thousand of capital improved values, CIV, represent a significant financial burden amidst broader economic and environmental pressures. And 5, supports the advocacy position of the MAV, the Victorian Association, the Municipal Association of Victoria, which has resolved to oppose the collection of the ESVF by councils and advocates for the responsibility to be assumed by the state government. Council commits to collaborating with the MAV and other Victorian councils in exploring legal advocacy and policy avenues to challenge the implementation of the levy or tax. 6, acknowledges widespread community opposition to the ESVF, evidenced by a petition with over 38,000 signatures as of the 30th of June 2025, and B, large-scale rallies involving volunteer firefighters and farmers. C, significant correspondence to members of Parliament. D, growing community advocacy and social media mobilisation. 7, request that Victorian Government provide greater transparency and accountability regarding the use of the funds collected through the ESVF, ensuring such funds are directed to frontline emergency services, including local CFA brigades, and not diverting the general state revenue or non-emergency related expenditure. 8, assert that the funding of the emergency services is fundamentally responsibility of the state government and should be funded through general taxation revenue, not through additional levies on property owners who already contribute through existing taxation. 9, notes the significant rate increases under the ESVF, which will impact cost of living pressures and local economic conditions, including A, residential variable rates increasing from 8.7 cents to 17.3 cents per thousand CIV. B, its commercial rate increasing from 66.4 cents to 133 per thousand CIV. It's a 100.3% increase. C, industrial rates increased from 81.1 to 133 cents per thousand CIV. Per $1,000 per CIV, so that's a 64% increase. 10, further resolves to A, write to the Victorian Government requesting it repeal or significantly amend the Emergency Services Volunteers Fund levy. And B, in event of the ESV receives royal assent and becomes law, ensure that any such levy collected by council, A, is clearly itemised as a separate line item on council rate notices. B, is labelled explicitly as a state government levy. C, is accompanied by a footnote clarifying that the levy is collected on behalf of the state government and is not retained by council. 11, requests that the Mayor to write to all Victorian councils, rural Council of Victoria and the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, seeking their support in opposing the implementation and collection of the ESVF. 12, request officers providing relevant information regarding the ESVF available on Council website, including a comparative table of the ESVF and former fire services property levy, the charges. B, plain English summary explaining the structural changes introduced by the ESVF. And C, outline of how collected funds will now flow into the state consolidated revenue and the implications of the emergency service levy funding transparency.
Thank you, Councillor Gregoire. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Oh, I'm prepared to second it. And Councillor Gregoire, did you have anything further you'd like to speak to the motion about?
I'll reserve my right. I just need a glass of water.
I'm sure you do. I was just going to add that in the borough, 75% of properties will have an increase of between 25 to 50%. 23% of properties will have an increase of between 50 and 100%. The median house price in the borough is $1.5 million, and that equates to 75%. They formerly paid $265. They'll now pay $395, therefore a 50% increase. As Councillor Gregoire says, it's not a levy, it's a tax on ratepayers, plain and simple. It's replacing the fire services property levy and designed to support a broader range of emergency services. However, that's questionable. And the main thing is it's collected by local councils. It's not our job to collect state government taxes. It's going to provide us with angst, and it's no doubt that in a reputational sense, but also in an administrative sense. Our people at the front line out there, they will have people complaining about this tax, and with good reason, but they're the ones who are copying it, not the state government. And the question remains, as Councillor Gregoire referred, who knows where this extra tax will end up? If it's in consolidated revenue, we all know about the hole that's in the budget. We heard further today the sorts of increases in projects that they're facing, such as for the Westgate Tunnel. We've already collected more than $840 million a year in state levies, and I would say to the state government, do your own dirty work. We've got more than enough to do. You're putting more than enough responsibility onto local government without giving us any more to do it with. Does anybody want to speak against the motion? Yes?
Mayor? Broadly, I do support this motion, not all of it, but enough of it to speak in favour of it, noting that ratepayers and landowners in the borough, as you've rightly noted, will experience an increase in the application of the levy, perhaps not the highest across the state, but significant enough. I think the motion is also a good education piece for the community and provides us with a mechanism to present to the public what the levy is for, how it will be collected, what it will and won't contribute to, and that it is being done on behalf of the state government. It is worth noting that the CFA and SES volunteers are exempt from the levy, acknowledging their significant contribution to the community, and this exemption and other concessions can be accessed online for when payment time does come. I accept local government is a product of the state government, but every cost-shifting gesture and tax-collecting function creates a burden for our sector, as you've rightly identified. I follow the issue with interest and acknowledge that running emergency and fire services is an increasingly costly and large task for whomever has to do it, but either on the front line or at the higher political level, but that a well-funded service is essential to support Victorians. So I also welcome feedback from the community on this matter as it progresses.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Does anybody else want to speak to the motion?
Can I
Councillor
invoke my
Gregoire?
right
Yep.
to have my speech on this?
Thank you.
I'd like to make one correction regarding the exemptions. the firefighters and farms that volunteer, it's not a clear exemption. Those people actually have to pay the tax upfront and then make an application for the exemption. So these people are already struggling on the farm and they have to pay this exorbitant tax upfront, then go and make an application to get a refund. And so, you know, the mistruths regarding this fund is fair, like, you know, the fire trucks are not being funded, let alone here in Queenscliff, we've got an outdated truck that it's second-hand, that still has not been funded. And these things, you know, have to be provided from general state revenue, and it's not being done because the Victorian state government has sent the state broke.
Thank you, Councillor Griggar. And I'd just like to add to that the it's only for the primary property too, which of course for farmers is very complicated because they have multiple titles. So it's only their primary property, which is often the smallest block, the house block, for which they're exempt. They still have to pay for everything else. Council has to make up the difference. It might be one way of sending all small councils broke. All those in favour of the motion? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving to petitions and joint letters, there have been none received. Item 10, functions attended. The recommendation is that the functions attended report be received excluding the second last item for the 16th of June 2025. The meeting with Renew Australia was unfortunately cancelled because the CEO had COVID. There's a few acronyms for you.
Not me.
No, the CEO of Renew Australia, sorry.
Mayor, can I
Thank you.
amend, sorry,
Yes.
move that the list, and I've got that renew element in there, so the list be adopted as presented with the following changes. That I attended the May 23 Treaty Victoria Information Forum, the May 26 Reconciliation Queenscliff event, the May 31 Point Lonsdale Primary School Community Family Day, you can see a theme there, and on June 16, as the Mayor noted, the Renew meeting did not occur.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. All those in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Moving to the Chief Executive Officer's report, which we'll take as read, unless there were anything. We have a recommendation. Does anybody have any questions of the CEO's report?
Yes, just to get a high-level summary about what was discussed with the KISP team manager, KISP being the Kindergarten Infrastructure Services Plan, which Council is required to undertake in terms of availing itself to funding.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Tolhurst. So it was a relatively productive meeting. So we went through the current demand data and the changes since the census data from 2021 started to filter through, and the 2023 updates to that. So we went through that. We also had a very good discussion about how the guidelines around allocations of places and particularly the implementation of the state government policy was having an impact locally. We spoke about some other local context issues around people moving across the Bellarine to access services, but really the demand data being very black and white, so it's either Borough or City of Greater Geelong. So we won't be able to necessarily change underlying data, which informs some of the KISS, but we are working with the department now to include a local context into the KISS plan and see if that makes any impact. So we're working through that. We're looking to agree to the new plan in October this year. So we've got a few months to work with them on that. Yep.
As a follow-up question, was there an explicit willingness to take on anecdotal feedback and data from local centres as to the current environment, less the projections for need in the next, 10 years?
Yeah, no, there certainly was. And the members of the department had, following earlier discussions, have gone and had conversations with Mally in particular about the application, and they're looking at how the priorities in the guidelines work because of that, where local places are a priority, but they're sort of the third priority above and beyond. So they've made a commitment to continue to look at that. Yep.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? The recommendation is that council receives the... Sorry, I'd missed.
So just a question regarding the community satisfaction survey, especially we've got still downward trends, especially value for money. We've dropped from 2023's 60 down to 55 is a 5-point drop, and then we dropped another 2 points from 24-25. What strategies are we planning to implement to hope give the perception that we're giving better value for money of our council services?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, and thank you for that question. I think certainly the operational efficiency review would be a good start, because that will certainly be able to provide an independent and objective view on whether or not we are running the organisation efficiently. I think we probably need to make more of communicating the amount of services we do actually provide, and that could be either through a service plan that we prepare coming out of that operational efficiency review, and make it clearer how some of the strategic work we've done over the last couple of years is actually going to provide value in terms of applications for grants and making our management of assets and planning for forward development much more strategic and less responsive. So there's a few things that we can do, and some of them are flagged in this year's budget, and I think, not all councils. Some of the councils will understand, those on the Audit and Risk Committee, that we're just about to commence a service plan audit, and I think that'll also give us some insights into what we can do better to communicate the value that we do provide.
Do you think this community satisfaction survey is actually useful, or is it there's talk from the state government actually to scrap this survey? Through you, Mayor. McKenna, who's with us tonight, has been on a working group for nearly 18 months. Is it, McKenna? Which has been doing a couple of things. One is coming to some conclusions about the value of the current survey to the sector, and trying in the meantime to work out what's another way of potentially meeting some of the state government requirements around Know Your Council and other reporting mechanisms. That I think the value is that in them, if there is any value, is in that they've been asking the same questions for a period of time. So you have some longitudinal data there. Whether the questions are fully understood or even relevant is another issue. I mean, most people who engage with planning in the borough, for instance, come out of it having a very pleasant experience, and will compliment the customer service we provide. But traditionally, we know planning's always a hot ticket item. So people sometimes in these surveys just go, "Oh, planning's not good. I don't know about planning." They may have not had any interaction with council around a planning matter.
and they may not have actually been through a planning process in any other function. So there is some questionable value to some of the questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? So did I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Moving on to item 12, the Integrated Water Management Plan. The recommendation is that Council endorses the Integrated Water Management Plan as presented. Do I have a mover for that motion? Yep, Councillor Cameron. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second it and then ask a question, if that's okay.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst.
Thank you,
and
Mayor.
your question?
The intersection of the... I think I may be directing this to Stu. Sorry. And that's the intersection between this plan and the public toilet strategy, which is also being renewed, if there is any direct links that need acknowledgement, I should say. Yes.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for the question. There is an indirect link. The Integrated Water Management Plan is around planning on a water cycle level, and it's around protecting potable water supplies. So certainly from that angle, the public toilet strategy, ensuring that we're using, as with all of our community facilities, are using water, potable water, effectively and efficiently.
Do you think it warrants acknowledgement in either document that they are sort of interrelated?
Probably not is the short answer. I think if you brought in that interrelationship, there'd be probably 1,000 others to bring in at the same time, is my best answer.
If I may add, Stuart, there is some potential around the toilet strategy to put some design principles in there, which could include efficient use of water and those sorts of things, which I think it might already be in there, Stuart.
So the public toilet strategy is being drafted currently, and it certainly does recognise the need for ESD principles, so environmentally sensitive design principles. So there's absolutely a link through that angle.
Thank you, Stuart. Any further questions? So we have a mover and seconder. All those in favour of the motion? Passed unanimously. Item 13, Health and Wellbeing, the Domestic Animal Management Plan. The recommendation is that Council adopts the Borough of Queenscliff Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029. Do I have a mover?
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate motion that the DAMP be adopted with the following changes. 1, increase the cat curfew from to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m, clarifying references in the document that vary between dusk to dawn and 8 or 9 p.m. to 6 a.m, acknowledging the extensive data about benefits to both native animals and the wellbeing of domestic cats. 2, reduce the deposit fee of the cat cage to $0, providing an incentive to assist council with capturing roaming cats out of the curfew. 3, acknowledge that Royal Park Oval is already being used as an unofficial off-leash dog park and present to council a model for a formal trial of Royal Park as a limited off-lead dog area for 12 months, supporting its primary function as a sporting ground, but giving consideration to any required signage, appropriate patrols and community engagement and education. 4, present to council the summary of this trial and a recommendation on its continuation as part of the DAMP's next annual review, including costs, risks and benefits. And 5, make a commitment to reviewing the plan's 4 priorities annually and detail progress to the community.
All right, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Monahan?
I'm happy to.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that motion, but I'd like to also say that the trial doesn't start until the fence is complete. We open ourselves up.
I'm happy to amend the motion that it include a commencement date for when the fence is complete. So I'll provide some wording to Jackie to include that, Councillor Monahan.
Does anybody wish to speak against the motion?
Yes, I will. I was saying it's impossible to police this cat curfew, like at 7 o'clock. That comes down to there's been no scoping of how and the actual cost that we're actually going to, to deliver this motions paper on for a 7 o'clock cat curfew. We don't do it now, and it's all you're doing is just virtue signalling to saying that this is what we're going to do, and it's like saying just placate that. We're not solving the problem here, and it comes down to this paper. The dam is actually there. It's actually for the whole community, not just cats and dogs, and so how we manage and how it relates to other people. Yes, we have animal lovers and also people actually afraid of animals. So it comes down to I think the current paper that was delivered by the officers actually is a happy medium and a practical solution to how we actually manage animal welfare and pet ownership here in the borough. So I don't support the motion. No.
Thank you, Councillor Gregoire. Does anybody else wish to speak for the motion?
Mayor, can I propose voting on the cat curfew element separate from...
Well, I think we'll need clarification of which motion we're actually talking about, because it's now become a little bit confusing, because we've got the first motion that you proposed, then we've got an amendment or an addition, and now what are you suggesting?
What I'm saying that I accept, I'll read the motion as I've including Councillor Monahan's change, and then what I'm proposing is that we vote on each of the items in the motion separately, or at least single out the cat curfew, because I'm, I guess, wanting to sense in the councillor group whether there's support for some of the motion, not all of it.
Mayor, can I just make a point? So you'll notice in the DAMP that there's an order around the cat curfew. So technically, to make the changes that you're requiring we would require to go through the process to change that order. So that would be formally that would be a separate process.
Well, then I'd really like to split out the cat curfew from the other items, and I'm happy to read them again to clarify the inclusion of Councillor Monahan's suggestion.
Okay, can I just...
Yes, go on.
Saying that we have an active motion on the table that we're supposed to be voting on. You just can't go in the middle of it and say, with an argument, you end up going and say, I'll just change the motion.
No.
The procedure really does need to be that we decide which motion we're discussing. Then you might want to add a motion, an amendment, but we need to go through the first motion.
We have an active motion on the table that we should be voting on. That is the governance.
But the governance rules...
Should I take over the governance portfolio then?
Mayor, I don't need to be spoken like that by another councillor. The governance rules allow for items to be voted on individually or made discrete items for voting.
I think it might have to be an amendment, because it's getting very confusing the way it is, especially as we don't have anything that tells us what we're up to. So let's go for the first part, and you could include Councillor Monahan's. Let's hear what that is. Jackie, do you have that?
I'll read through the items that I'm proposing. One, increase the cat curfew from the...
Sorry, Councillor, we need to know which motion we're going to vote on now. So we'll break it down later perhaps, or an amendment, but I think we need to have the motion that's on the table, which was when I asked for the recommendation and what you were moving, that was what you said.
Sorry, but I understood there was some confusion, so I'm proposing to reread it so people know what they're voting on.
The
What would you
confusion
like
is
from me?
about what we're voting for. So we need to know the motion.
Yeah, that's what I was reading out.
Excuse me, it may be worth just adjourning for a couple of minutes so we can all get on the same page.
Good idea.
Yep.
Thank you.
Read it out if you need me to read it again. Yep. Okay, so we'll go back and vote on mine, and then we'll put Brendan's up. Sure.
No. Jen, no, but she's put up she's
recommence the meeting. Thank you.
7:42.
Thank you. Councillor Tolhurst, do you have a motion?
I do. So rereading the motion I originally put, I have, and it has been circulated in writing now to the councillors, but I reread it for the purposes of voting on this first motion. So one, I move that the DAMP be adopted with the following changes. One, increase the cat curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Two, reduce the deposit fee of the cat cage to $0, providing an incentive to assist council with capturing roaming cats out of the curfew. Three, acknowledge that Royal Park Oval is already being used as an unofficial off-leash dog park and present to council a model for a formal trial of Royal Park as a limited off-lead dog area for 12 months, supporting its primary function as a sporting ground, but giving consideration to any required signage, appropriate patrols and community engagement and education. 4, present to council the summary of this trial and a recommendation on its continuation as part of the DAMP's next annual review, including costs, risks and benefits. 5, make a commitment to reviewing the plan's 4 priorities annually and detail progress to the community.
That's been seconded, so...
And now can I move to... Mayor, I wish to move to have item 1 dealt with as the first motion, and then items 2 to 5 be voted on separately in accordance with, I think it was section 58 of our governance rules. Thank you. Do I need to move and second that and vote on that request?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's fine. Now, do we have anybody who'd like to? So you're moving it, Councillor Monahan?
It's been seconded.
Yes.
Yeah, so
And
we'll vote on the first.
we're going to vote on that first section. Are we voting on part 1?
Part 1, which is increasing the cat curfew.
All right. All those in favour of that, increasing the cat curfew? 1, Councillor Monahan. 2, Councillor Tolhurst. Those against? Councillors Cameron, Rule and Grigau.
Oh, did you call a division?
2 to 3, but I just gave it. Yes. Now, would you like to...
And have the items 2 to 5 dealt with. Does anyone need me to read those again?
You can discuss it if you want. Yeah.
Would anybody like to discuss items 2 to whatever we were? Councillor Tolhurst, did you?
I've put this motion up. I guess I'd speak to it only to say that I think the motion captures existing use, what's happening in our community, and certainly some of the feedback that was presented to council during the DAMP consultation process, and I think this is a more wholesome or sufficient way of managing that feedback and incorporating it. More broadly, I think the plan contains really good information about building safe communities and living alongside domestic animals, but I would like to see some of that feedback brought to life in a meaningful way through some of the items flagged here tonight. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to speak against the motion? Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not going to be a trial until the fence is completed. I just want to make that point.
Was that included in your original? Yes. Going to be an amendment. Councillor Cameron? Can you put your speaker on?
Item 4 states the trial to begin after the fence has been completed.
I circulated that as a modification, but the true motion I read out did not contain it in the first instance.
Thank you. Right, thank you for clarifying that. I think that a few were concerned, yes, discombobulated. I just wanted to say that although we have people here tonight who have talked about the need for cat curfews and also further dogs off leash areas, we are very well serviced, particularly for the dogs off leash. And I understand that it's difficult for some to get to the dog beach, but many areas don't even have that. We did put this out for public submission, and there were only 15 submissions received. Of those 15, 5 primary requests were made for off-leash areas, so not even a 50% of the 15. One primary request was for cat curfew enforcement, so not for extension of cat curfew, but for actually enforcing what we already have. And another primary request was for cat containment. So at this stage, we haven't had a lot of response from the public, from our community. And although I understand anecdotally there are many who would like a further off-leash area, I think what Tim Crawford proposed earlier, which was that we run a survey to ask where and when people would like an off-leash area, and I think that might be the more reasonable way of doing it. So that's my contribution.
I speak against motion. So, there are a huge amount of pet lovers. I'm one. This long weekend, if I didn't have a very sick dog, I would have had an addition to my family and a cat. But, with owning these, that takes responsibility, but there are also, you have to have in mind that there's people that are allergic, and there's people that have sort of got a phobia. There's deep effects that, they just can't stand, cats, can't stand dogs, and it's like we also have to be mindful of those people. We live in a shared environment, and we also have to think about those people, and they have their spaces, and to be able to walk down the street or go down the park and not be, harassed, attacked, or sort of that we have to be mindful of them as well. So I'm say again that I think the current form of the dam is actually a very good sort of balance to help manage the care of our four-legged friends and in our community, and and it's just a balance. We just can't go and say we can't go either way. We need to have a balance within this, and it comes down to, as much as we not like having dogs on leash, but it comes down to there's a responsibility to actually have those dogs under control, and just we need to enforce what our laws that we have, and and it's true we don't, and it's very hard. But I think at the system we have now is actually a very good and fair one. So I wouldn't like to tinker around with it.
Thank you. I would just like to foreshadow that if this motion is lost, that I'd be putting an alternative motion which would go back to the recommendation of the officers, which included conducting a survey, as I spoke about. So that's just foreshadowing a motion. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for this motion? In that case, I put the motion as read. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is lost. I'll progress with my foreshadowed motion, which is that Council adopts the Borough of Queenscliff Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026-2029. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour?
You're going to speak for and against the motion?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's been long.
Have you got more to say? All right, I'm sorry. Would you like to speak to the motion, or seconder? Who seconded it? Councillor Cameron. Thank you, and I'm reserving my right. Those against? Councillor Tolhurst.
Just briefly to add to the reasons, the rationale why I put forward the alternate motion is that this off-leash dog park, as one element of the motion, is already being used in that way. You know, sufficient animal management and community engagement with animals is already, like that site is being used. This was an opportunity to gain some learnings from it and potentially do that survey work. Like, I think the result from the survey personally will be, hey, we've already got a site that is being routinely used for this. So the intent of the past motion and my concern with the DAMP as it stands, is it forecast to do work that in one respect is, or in many, is already being done. And I'd really like to see, as I said, those priorities, which the current DAMP doesn't commit to doing, the priorities that are set out, some annual reporting against those so that we're not here in 4 years without any further progress on the DAMP and the interest in the community in moving on this, whatever council votes to do or decides to do. And I think the DAMP has a great context-setting exercise around living on the edge of Swan Bay and all the special biodiversity and animal life and bird life that exists there, but without considering the research and the context around the damage domestic and feral cats can do. Sorry, I'll keep it to domestic, as this is the domestic animal management plan. I think that undermines the context-setting piece we do about Swan Bay. So I don't support the motion and would really like to see, would have liked to have seen some of the feedback incorporated in a little bit more meaningfully into this plan.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. I would just like to say that in supporting the motion, I'm very happy for the officers to conduct the survey that will consider more than one option, and we'll look at the options and decide which is the preferred option within the community. And can I encourage the community to get involved so that we're dealing with more than 15 submissions and getting a better idea of what our community of 3,200 would like. Does anybody else wish to speak for or against the motion? In that case, all those in favour of the motion? For, those against, 1. Thank you. The motion is passed. Thank you. Moving to item 13.2, the Draft Access and Inclusion Plan. The recommendation, does anybody have another motion before I start reading the recommendation? The recommendation is that Council endorses the Borough of Queenscliff Access and Inclusion Plan 2025-2029, including the 2025-2026 Implementation Plan. 2, requests officers and the Lived Experience Disability Reference Group to present costings for a beach access matting program and an International Day for People with a Disability event for consideration at a future meeting. 3, request officers and the Lived Experience Disability Reference Group to develop annual implementation plans for incorporation into Council's annual plans and budgets. And 4, requests officers and the Lived Experience Disability Reference Group to provide regular updates on the implementation program. Do I have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gregar. Councillor Tolhurst, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks. And just to say a big thank you to the group and the staff that have put so much work into this plan. It's the first plan, as we know, in a long time, and an immense amount of work has been done since 2022 when it was initiated. And I think what is before us here today is something to be really proud of. So I look forward to seeing what comes of it. I think if you haven't had a read, the plan acknowledges upfront the realities of having a disability in the region, noting the number of people with disabilities is going up. A significant amount of young people are now on NDIS, more than 50% locally are under 19, and chronic or long-term disability is increasing. So with those realities in mind, this is an important plan, and it's one that is thoughtful, it's inclusive, and it's ambitious. But the addition of the implementation plan will also make us accountable to it. So this is a big milestone and plenty more to come. Thank you to all involved.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Gregar, do you wish to speak? Reserve your right. Is there anybody else wanting to speak for or against the motion?
I take it my right regarding this and saying it's good that we actually can bring up this this disability inclusion plans. It's been a long road because we've actually, when we passed the first one, like it was a good 20 years that we've done very little for this part of our community. But also we also have to note, and it's good that we're actually putting some financial sort of governance over this part of delivery service for our community, because we don't want this to go spiral out of control and send this council broke, because as the NDIS costings can, and how it's spiraled for the federal government. So I think we know where we can provide in sort of within the council budgets, but also we will have to push hard for funding within those parcels from the state and federal government to help deliver the objectives for this group.
Thank you, Councillor Gregar. I'd now like to put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 14, Heritage Planning and Infrastructure. Would you like to add something to this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At last month's council meeting, it was just noted that we would update any status changes, any planning applications, given the agenda is for the applications as of close of business the 13th of June 2025. So there's just a few updates here for you tonight. First one in respect of 42 Fellows Road, Point Lonsdale. So the status update is amended plans have been received, reducing the building scale of the dwelling and set to objectives. So it's still under consideration by the Senior Planning Officer. In respect of 66 King Street, Queenscliff, the update there is a notice of decision was issued on the 16th of June. In respect of 199 Point Lonsdale Road, Point Lonsdale, the permit was issued on the 16th of June. And finally, in respect of the VCAT application of 6 McDonald Road, this afternoon Council received advice that VCAT have issued a permit granting 16 helicopter flights per month between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. As I say, it's a lengthy decision from VCAT, so we're still analysing that, but we'll communicate that with the community later this week.
Thank you, Tim. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Regarding the VCAT result from McDonald Road, or 6 McDonald Road, can you please advise regarding what the cost of that little legal cost of the legal battle that we had with the applicant, and also what were the changes and what was the outcomes if we just approved it from the beginning. Were there any from the results? Were there any increases or further decreases in restrictions that were originally sort of approved by council?
In respect of your first question, Councillor, I would need to take on notice the exact amount, but from memory, it was in the legal costs were in the region of $45,000.
Yeah, that's my recollection as well, Tim. Yep.
The second part of your question, the council position when we went back to VCAT earlier this year was we were supporting 6 flights per calendar month. That was the position of council at that time. I guess the other thing to note is that this was went through the previous term of council, and the starting point there was there was no flights.
That's right.
Yes, it was.
We objected to
It was.
0 flights, and that's obviously progressed in that term of council.
But there wasn't there an original recommendation that there was about 6 flights moved? Yes, no, the original sort of recommendation from the officer.
Yeah. We're just trying to recall if it was 6 or 8. I think it was 8. Yeah. But certainly there was, in the application was open-ended, the negotiated position was about 8 flights, I think, and then, yeah.
So what was the outcome?
16.
16. So virtually doubled. And a cost of $45,000. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. The recommendation is that the planning permit activity report be received. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan, and a seconder, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Governance and finance. Moving on to the revised governance rules. The recommendation is that Council adopts the revised governance rules as presented. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Does anybody wish to speak? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst.
Yes, thanks. I recall considerable outcry. I think that last year only one person gave feedback to the changing or suggested changing of our governance rules. But here we are with no feedback, and I still believe that it's important to make changes to the governance rules because they're in the interest of better meeting conduct. So I think the reality remains governance rules must be fit for purpose. Changes can be made at any time to support meetings that make sense, that include the public appropriately, allow for fair debate and enable visible decision making on key council matters. So I think all the changes support or satisfy all those principles or demands. For me, the highlight of the changes is the insertion of a table of procedural motions, and this table helps explain some of the key procedures, unsurprisingly, of the meeting, the elements and consequence of each motion or action, when and why it would be used. And this is about responding to concern or to feedback from the sector about making sure the public understands what's happening at any given time. So if you feel like a light read, dive in, and thanks to Jenny for the support in getting this table up into our governance rules.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Does anybody else wish to speak? That being the case, I put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Moving to 15.2, the review of council policies. We have 3 council policies that have been reviewed. They're broken up individually. The first is community engagement. The recommendation is that council adopts the revised policy CP 003, community engagement, as presented. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Monaghan, do you wish to speak? Councillor Tolhurst? Does anybody wish to speak? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. The second policy is complaint handling. The recommendation is that Council adopts the revised policy CPO 35, complaint handling as presented. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Does anybody wish to speak? All those in favour? Passed. Thank you. The third policy is Victoria Park. Do I have a motion for Victoria Park? We haven't got the motion yet. All right. So Councillor Monaghan is moving the recommendation that Council adopts the revised policy CPO 54 Victoria Park as presented. Do I have a seconder? And sorry, I do. Councillor Gregar. Councillor Monaghan, do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gregar? I thought so. Can't do it now. So, but you can move an amendment. But
Move an amendment to the recommendation that we have, No, I can.
well,
You can't, I
in
didn't
our
move.
governance rules you can, usually you can't.
The
Point of order, sorry, this is precisely the issue we were just dealing with for the matter I raised previously. I think we need to vote on the matter as presented. We've had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in the report. As per the
Actually,
process,
Councillor Tolhurst, this time there's been an amendment made.
as the seconder.
But that's fine, according to our governance rules, which is what I pointed out before. Our governance rules don't specify in 52 that a seconder cannot
move an
propose an amendment. Usually that's the case, and it was clarified it's because there's only 5 of us. Maybe that's another change we need to make to our governance rules. There's a few things I've got here.
Thank you. The next, that this policy is actually reviewed in 12 months.
Thank you. All right, so let's be clear. The amendment to the motion is that Council adopts the revised policy and that, could you just say that again, please?
Reviewed in 12 months of this adoption.
And that the policy is reviewed within 12 months of the adoption. Do I have a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Cameron. Thank you. That's the
Yes,
motion. All right. Yes, Councillor Cameron.
In the report, there are 2 parts to that option, and only part 1 was read out, not part 2.
I'm sorry?
In the report, there were 2 parts to that recommendation, and only the first part.
They're the options.
Well, I can't find.
Page 52.
Okay.
There's been an amendment to that recommendation which includes the 12-month review. Are you seconding that? Are you speaking to it?
No,
Does anybody want to speak to or against? Councillor
Sorry,
Tolhurst.
I'll speak against. As noted in endorsing this policy for public exhibition, I do believe that all policy should strike a balance of community needs and be adaptable. And in this case, the balance is around economic and environmental values. And I think that absolutely can be achieved. But for me, the changes presented tonight are a bit of a reactive mechanism for doing that. I think if it's passed in its current form, the policy may in fact be redundant, and other existing processes, including council's local laws, park rules and veg management policy, probably cover the elements that survive. There are elements of the policy I support, such as allowing camping in certain parts of the park from May to September to provide flexibility to park managers and avoid turnaways. But the areas likely to be used during this time, I think, should be specified to provide assurance and clarity. And for example, I'd really like to have seen low-impact camping preserved in an effort to balance that community feedback. I think economic gains have already been made with a fresh and proactive approach to tourist parks in the borough, and I really commend these from the team. But my preference would be to use an all-of-parks approach to ensure we get maximum returns, balance varying camper caravan needs and preserve sensitive environments. And it would be my preference that this occur through the council plan process in a more strategic way to boost the viability of the parks in the borough. I do look forward to further discussions about how we'll manage all the parks in the borough and adopt mechanisms, whether they already exist and we're using them or they're new, that can be applicable across all sites for the ease of council and community. And I'm confident that this can support both boosted economic value and strong amenity and environmental care in our parks.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Does anybody else want to speak to or for the motion?
I will, thank you. I'll just
Councillor Grigor.
Just reiterate the genesis of this policy. It came down to there was severe, you could say, destruction. Some people call some parts of the community, it's actually labelled at vandalism. And it came down to the policy was required to protect the park and also give the community and all the end users some sort of surety and access into the park and for longevity. So it comes down to, we've had the time where we've split the park up, we've protected areas, we've re-vegged, and now, it comes down to, we have to give some park and, give it a go to the officers and things as a one-year trial, as I propose, and we come back to, asking for a review in 12 months of how is it being managed by the officers to allow the rotation of sites from the rec reserve. I think, it's important that we know we have to give it a, suck it and see approach. Things will grow, but, it comes down to we might probably need to invest a little bit more money back into the regrassing of certain areas and make them grow faster, but without giving the officers the actual chance of actually using certain parts, actually give more opportunity to spread out the usage on these shoulder periods and off-season periods. I think we're not going to be able to manage the other parts of the rec reserve. So I think this amendment to the policy is actually required, and then we can come back with, in 12 months to actually see if, if it's worked or if, or if it needs a little bit more adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? 1, 4, 1. Thank you. The motion's carried. Moving to item 15.3.
Well, you
Oh, sorry, if I missed one?
No, I think Councillor.
I was just going to ask. And Councillor Grigor, I think you had a conflict of interest.
Yes, sorry, we're up to
15.3.
15 here, thank you.
Remember this one. Uh, 15.3 is the Headstones project budget allocation. The recommendation is that Council approves the inclusion of a $17,000 contribution to the Headstone project as part of the budget 2025-2026. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Monaghan. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Would either of you wish to speak? Councillor Monaghan.
Thank you, Councillor Rule, Mayor Rule. I just think that to give this allocation for 17,000 is a small price for us as a council to put forward for people that have fought and died for our country and lie in unmarked graves now. So I think it's something that I think it's a great cause. So,
thank you, Councillor Monaghan. Councillor Cameron? Anything? All done? Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Tolhurst?
I'll speak for the motion as well and echo everything Councillor Monaghan said. It's been really nice to be able to give a portion of money that funds such a clear part of the project, and I know that there's a deadline, I think, for November this year to have some of those headstones marked up, ready for a ceremony at a similar time, the armistice, and I think being available for the delivery date of the project and to support the storytelling personally and as a council, I think will be a great opportunity for our community.
Thank you. Can I put the motion? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Thank you. Moving to item 15.4, which is the final revenue and rating plan in the budget 2025-26. Councillor Tolhurst, do you have the motion?
I do have a motion, thank you.
Thank you.
I went somewhere else momentarily. The recommendation is that Council notes the 19 budget submissions were received and considered for the 2025-26 draft budget. 2, notes Council's responses provided for all community submissions are received. 3, notes the key amendments to the 2025-26 draft budget summarised in this Council paper and other minor amendments or editorials to the 2025-26 draft budget as were required to ensure accuracy and legislative compliance. 4, adopts the 2025 budget with the following change. A, the non-recurring operating project contribution to Lifeboat Centenary, Queenscliff Maritime Museum and Coast Guard, with a budget allocation of $30,000 be omitted and replaced with grant to Queenscliff Maritime Museum for Queenie Centenary event $15,000 and transfer the balance of $15,000 to the community grant and sponsorship budget allocation. 5, adopts the revised revenue and rating plan. 6, declares the amount of rates and charges intended to be raised as follows, and that the general rates will be raised by the application of the differential rates included in the 2025-26 budget. 7, declares the rates, rating differentials and charges for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026 conform with Council's revenue and rating plan and will be applied as outlined in section 4.11 of the 2025-26 budget. 8, notes the general rates must be paid in full by 4 instalments made on or before the following dates. Instalment 1, 30 September 2025. Instalment 2, 30 November 2025. Instalment 3, 28 February 2026. And Instalment 4, 31 May 2026. 9, requires that any person pay interest on any amounts of rates and charges which A, that person is liable to pay, and B, have not been paid by the date specified for their payment, and C, are not specifically waived as part of Council's rates assistance policy. 10, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to levy and recover the 2025-26 general rates and annual service charges. 11, approves the fees and charges as set in the Appendix A of the 2025-26 budget. 12, gives public notice that Council has adopted the 2025-26 budget and the revised revenue and rating plan. And 13, requests officers to prepare a paper for the July ordinary meeting of Council to establish a Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Oh, thank you, Councillor Gregor. Councillor Tolhurst, do you wish to speak?
This is a really exciting budget, and it's really nice to finally be here in a position to adopt it. It's our first budget as a new councillor group, and I think there's been a great work ethic and spirit of collaboration in pulling it together. As I noted in adopting the draft for consultation, this budget, I think, has struck a balance of legislative requirement, as is also mentioned in the motion, community needs, been fair to those who might be struggling with cost of living pressures at this time more than others, or more at this particular moment, and made commitments to action that aim to improve the borough. It's been a really good process to be a part of, and I thank my councillor colleagues for that. The highlights that are presented here tonight that I hope will support both the development of our council plan and be exciting projects to see rolled out include $40,000 total for solar on council-owned buildings and renewal projects, $30,000 for a wayfinding signage strategy, contributions to support the Queenscliff Maritime Museum operations and events, noting that its key role in part of our town storytelling, $100,000 for Hesse Street Revitalisation Funds, $5,000 for Murray Road salt marsh weeding and preservation, a $3 million capital works program including toilet improvements, sports precinct work, caravan park improvements and renewed beach infrastructure, and continued membership with Tourism Greater Geelong and the Bellarine. Following the adoption of the budget, should it get up tonight, I look forward to reviewing the consultation and engagement process for the budget in the new financial year and considering how we will reflect on what's been done, what's been successful, but how we also might strengthen the process, ideally starting earlier with longer lead times to understand community need, more council-led conversations and drawing on what other councils are doing to make it a really robust process. There's also a note in the motion about establishing a financial or being presented with a model for a financial sustainability advisory committee, and I think this is an important reflection of where the sector is at, perpetually challenged with sustainability, how to be sustainable. Local government has a lot of strain on it, and we know we always operate in a tight fiscal environment. So I look forward to seeing the model and being able to endorse something that can provide support to officers and the council. Gihan, as always, thank you immensely to you and your team. It's a monumental effort each year, but your professionalism is eternal. And I personally sincerely value the time you take each year to ensure councillors understand the budget and all its elements, but also how we want to present this to the community and make sure they also understand it to the degree necessary. I happily endorse the items here tonight and look forward to the progress they bring over the next 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Councillor Grigor, did you wish to speak?
Just a question. So regarding how we're going to then, by passing the budget, has there been any allocations for the ratepayers that, are going to maybe or possibly short paying their rates due to the ESVF? How much money have the council actually put aside, or will that come from, what is the break-even point, and could, how many ratepayers roughly will it take to actually send the council broke if they do not pay that part of their rates?
Rather than respond on the run, I think we better, because that's quite a complex question, take that on notice. We haven't put, we're not anticipating that people won't pay the levy, but we're aware that it may occur. So, but we haven't done anything through the budget process, but we'll take the rest of the question on notice.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak for or against the budget? I'd just like to say a few words. This budget will draw on reserves by up to $1,024,000, as detailed on page 64, but there will be no funds drawn from the General Reserve. In fact, 9,000 is being added to it. At the end of the 2025-2026 financial year, this budget projects a balance of 1,458,000 in the General Reserve. We will draw 455,000 from the Asset Replacement Reserve to fund asset renewals, including cabin replacements at the Recreation Reserve, the fence renewal at Royal Park, renewal of Ocean View Kiosk, and amenity renewal at Golightly Park. And at the end of 2025-26 financial year, the projection for the balance in the Asset Replacement Reserve is 1,802,000. And these are our two key reserves, the General and the Asset Replacement Reserves. 494,000 will be drawn from the Capital Carry Forward Reserve for the toilet at Toc H, repairs to the Ripview stairs, AV equipment for the Town Hall, and scope and design work for both the amenities at Royal Park and the irrigation of the Oval. From the operating carry forward reserve, 50,000 will be drawn to fund the next heritage study for Queenscliff, and 26,000 will be transferred from the waste management reserve. Each of these projects outlined is designed to make our borough a better place to live and visit, and some will help improve or increase our revenue. The Borough of Queenscliff currently has a debt-free balance sheet and no new borrowings are included in this budget. The net cash provided by operating activities this financial year is projected to be 1,304,000. However, it's never enough. It's critical that we operate as efficiently as possible to remain financially sustainable. To that end, with the support of the CEO and officers, we will continue to cross-examine this budget at each quarter. If there are savings to be made, we'll make them. And because all potential avenues for achieving efficiency savings must be actively explored, we will undertake an efficiency review of our organisation. Councillors will set the term of reference for the review and a target will be nominated. Furthermore, as Councillor Tolhouse outlined, we'll set up a financial sustainability committee which will include 3 independent members with financial qualifications and experience. This committee will provide advice on financial management matters such as consideration of our budget processes, reviewing which reports are required by councillors and the community, setting up things like service plans, long-term financial planning, such as brainstorming ways to increase our revenue. The committee will meet quarterly to coincide with our quarterly reporting. Thank you all for your submissions to this budget, and thank you to Gihan and his staff for all of their support. I look forward to working together with you all during this financial year to make our beautiful place even better. I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 15.5, the annual plan. The recommendation is that Council adopts the annual plan 2025-26 as presented. Do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Griggar. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Tolhurst.
Just a question, actually, if that's okay, around... No, I just realised it's the plan for the next financial year, so that's okay. We've made that transition. Can you talk about, the second question was around the wayfinding strategy draft being scheduled for Q3 and the process that kind of might lead up to that, to give us that draft by Q3 and not at a different stage. I guess what I'm saying is not earlier.
Yeah. We've been quite conservative with some of our projections, noting that we we haven't finalised the council plan and that there may be some work to do before that. But I think that the process as we understand it at the moment is that once the advisory committee on the public realm infrastructure gets set up, we'll talk to them about what role they may play in developing support or the scope for the wayfinding strategy. So there's a bit of time, I think, invested in trying to get everybody up to speed and on the same page, and then we'll go away potentially and start the process for that. Yep. Thank
you. Can I put the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving to item 16, questions without notice. The questions without notice status update is there are no questions without notice outstanding. 16.2, calling for questions without notice. Councillor Cameron.
Question for the CEO. Can we please have an update on the Ripview staircase and an estimated date of reopening?
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Through you, I might defer to Stuart, if that's all right.
Good evening again, councillors. Thank you for the question. The Ripview access stairs, we've been contacted by the contractor this week to notify us of their availability to commence. The Marine and Coastal Act consent that's been issued for this project requires us to provide 2 weeks' notice to the community before we commence works and close the stairs. We'll be looking to advertise and notify the community this week and commence those works within those after those 2 weeks. The annual plan nominates Q2, the end of Q2, as our target date for completion. We're hopeful we can complete it earlier.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Cameron.
I have second question for the CEO. Can we also please have an update on the Point Lonsdale Reserve toilet block and an estimated date of completion?
Through you, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, you want to get your steps up, mate. Come on.
Thank you. The council is currently waiting for the receipt of a cultural heritage management plan to progress this project. Is well underway. We're just waiting on the report to be provided to council. It's anticipated we'll receive this management plan in September, and our target's to complete the construction of the toilet block by the end of Q2 in the 25-26 financial year, and as per the annual plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have questions without notice? Councillor Tolhurst.
Thank you, Mayor. For the CEO, just related to the Kinder Infrastructure Services planning item before, but the progress of land consolidation of the Queenscliff kindergarten site?
Yeah, and thank you, and through you, Mayor. This won't be a very precise answer, I'll go away and check, but what we have done is we've initiated the process. We're now, we've commissioned the land surveyor to prepare the drawings, and then it goes into state government for the processing, and that's where I need to probably do a bit of a follow-up to see where it's at in that process.
And thank you. Would the follow-up include knowing an estimated time for that to be completed, or do you have a sense of that?
Certainly ask. No,
thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there, Councillor Cameron?
Can I just ask, please, upon that, just for the sake of everybody in the room, who are the groups that are involved in that land under the kindergarten?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Cameron. So at the moment there's 3 different groups. The Department of Education, or for part of the site closest to the primary school, Vic Track, which has a lease on the majority of land along Swan Bay there, and council itself has part of the land as well. So it's broken up into three different parts of three different titles at the moment, yeah.
And I'm guessing the building is on the council land?
The building's across all three, which makes it very complicated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Been there before, Councillor Cameron. Are there any further questions without notice? Thank you. The list of council meetings, the planning review meeting is set for the 9th of July if required. And just to reiterate for those watching and few remaining, that our next council meeting, in fact our next few council meetings, will be at Warring, the hub, much warmer. We move now to item 18, the closed section of the meeting. The recommendation at 2037 is that in accordance with sections 66.1 and 66.2a of the Local Government Act, the meeting be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items, and they're listed: 18.1, 18.2, 18.3, 18.5. I move that. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Get to see what we're discussing. Yes. You have to tell them what the why with the utilization of.
Right, 18.1 is the event sponsorship and community grants 2025-26. 18.2 is the provision of cleaning services for municipal buildings and facilities contract 2022/01. 18.3 is the provision of cleaning services for the amenities blocks and barbecue facilities contract 2022/02. 18.4 is the appointment of community representatives to the Borough of Queenscliff and Queenscliff Museums Partnership Advisory Committee. 18.5 is the appointment of an Urban Design and Public Realm Assets Advisory Group. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Tolhurst. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour? Passed, with Councillor Monaghan absent.
So, sorry, Jackie?